Oh, hi there, Dan Amrett from oneofswords.com, and it's a little known fact, but gaming didn't actually start with the PlayStation and Xbox. I'm standing at California Extreme 2011. This is the biggest arcade and pinball collector show in the Bay Area, and personally my favorite one to attend every year. I am surrounded by gaming history. Every time I come here I see something new, something interesting, something that should not be forgotten by gamers of all stripes. I'm surrounded by classic pinball machines, video games you've never heard of, more importantly video games I've never heard of. Let me show you some of my favorite oddities that are here at the show. Funhouse is an extremely popular pinball machine from the late 80s. It has a lot of toys, which is the pinball term for any sort of animated characters or interactive little plastic figurines that are in there. This one's specific because the machine talks back to you. It's a little creepy. There's like a giant Funhouse head named Rudy who talks to you on the back glass. Well, there's also a plastic Rudy inside. This particular machine has been customized with some nose glasses. But the really interesting tidbit about this is that although he didn't do anything else with it, Ed Boon is the voice of Rudy. So Medieval Madness is one of everybody's favorite arcade machines. The pinball machine was from the late 90s. What a lot of people don't know, in addition to being a really good game, lots of goals, lots of funny voices and things like that, one of those voices is Tina Fey. She plays one of the princesses that you have to rescue, and she does like 3 or 4 different accents over the course of the game. So next time you play it, listen very closely and you'll hear her. Probably my favorite pinball machine of all time is Taxi from Williams in the late 80s. You play cab driver and you go around picking up famous celebrity or, famous people like Santa Claus or Gorbachev. That proves it's late 80s. But Taxi is particularly interesting because you pick up an actress in this version named Lola, and she's a brunette in a red dress. But in the original version of the game that shipped, she was called Marilyn and she was a blonde. And you can guess that somebody's estate got a little upset about that. So they actually had to recall the machine. There are some Marilyn machines that still exist. Lola's a little bit more common, but they're both here, Lola and Marilyn, together at last at California Extreme. Just when you thought that there was every Pac-Man game in the world you'd probably heard of, most people don't know that Baby Pac-Man existed. This was absolutely something that was created on stateside, not from Japan, to capitalize on the popularity of Pac-Man, but it was also dealing with the growing pains that the industry was going through at the time, where video games had started to take over pinball in terms of business and popularity. The answer, take the biggest franchise in games at the time and make it a hybrid. There are no energizers on the field. If you want to get away from the ghosts, you shoot down a little tunnel here, and all of a sudden, you're playing pinball on the platform underneath. It was not a really big success, but it is a pretty interesting experiment. The opening salvo, really, in video versus pinball, when the two things both got popular at the same time, was Atari making a game called Video Pinball. It's got flippers on the side, it's small, but the whole thing is entirely video generated. It was popular, so popular in fact that the folks from thisoldgame.com created their own homebrew version of Video Pinball called Video Pinball 2.0, which is an entirely fan-made Tron recreation. They changed everything. They said that the game is made by Encom in 1979, different playfield, customized LEDs, customized control panel. It's really a gorgeous piece of fan work, and this is the only place I've ever seen it. Here's an even stranger experiment from the world of pinballs trying to invade on video game space and vice versa. It's an upright pinball machine from Williams called Varcon. This is extremely rare. There's only about 90 to 100 of these in existence. But what you're seeing is a mirrored image of a playfield that's below. So you're actually playing a standard pinball machine where all the regular gravity rules apply, except that when you play it, you're seeing a reflection of it, so it feels like you're shooting the pinballs straight up in the air. It's a very small platform kind of game. There is a sub-playfield underneath where you also, if you get enough targets, it'll go deeper into the machine, so it really enhances the effect of being a completely different experience in pinball than you've probably ever seen before. One thing that California Extreme has a lot of is prototypes. Since the show takes place very close to where Atari's old headquarters were, a lot of the people that helped put together the show took some of their work home with them. One of those games is Sparks, which is a really great game that I found a couple of years ago, played it here for the first time. If you mixed Tetris with the old PC game Pipes, you'd kind of have the idea what it is. You're a mad scientist and trying to build robots, but you do so by dropping pipe sections and connecting the two sides of the well on the screen. It's also 2-player co-op. It's very, very addictive, and it's a shame that it never actually made it out. This game's marquee might be a little hard to see. It's a hand-drawn thing that says Dragon Master. At California Extreme, if you're seeing something hand-drawn, it's probably a one-off prototype. Turns out this game is actually called Fire Beast. It's one of 2 in the world, and it was a prototype from Atari that they were trying to get to do an official Dragon Riders of Pern game, but Anne McCaffrey's folks said no. So this is something you're really not going to find anywhere else. Another oddball prototype that you're probably only going to see here at California Extreme is Marble Man, which was the sequel to Marble Madness. I'm a huge Marble Madness fan. It's one of the games I spent a lot of time growing up playing. For some reason, they made the sequel with joysticks. The whole thing was that you were playing with a giant trackball and moving another marble on the screen. It made the most sense of any video game that I've ever seen. Marble Man went with joysticks. I wonder why it never made it out. Another famous footnote in the legal history of video games is Jungle King. Taito put this out in the early 80s with a very Tarzan-like character. So Tarzan-like, in fact, that he had Tarzan's yell, and he's swinging between vines and jumping and stabbing alligators and things that Tarzan would do. Well, the Burroughs estate noticed, and they also asked him to take it away. So they changed it to Jungle Hunt, and it still went on to be a pretty darn big hit in 1982. The interesting thing about Jungle King is that it's the same exact game, except in Jungle Hunt, they put a helmet on the guy. Here, his hair changes color in every round. He's got black hair in the first round, he's a blonde when he's stabbing alligators underwater, and he's a redhead when he's jumping boulders on level 3. I have no idea why. Here's an oddball that you may have seen on one of the Taito Legends collections, but probably not in this form. Taito's Kadash was from 1989, and it was basically a platform RPG. If you're a Zelda fan, a lot of people would say that you might like this game. To me, it reminded me of World of Warcraft. What you've got is 4 players linked from 2 machines, which was not common in 1989. You're each playing a different class, a fighter, a mage, a ninja, or a priestess, and you're going out and you're leveling up as you do platformy, go-right kind of things. Really interesting, and technology that was a bit ahead of its time, but it certainly came around, didn't it? Death Race from Exidy in 1976 is an infamous game because many believe it's the first game to be banned for its content. The whole concept of the game, as it suggests, is that you run over little people with your car, but the little people kind of look vaguely like blocky pixelated humans. More importantly, the operator of the machine could set their screams to sound very alien-like or kind of chillingly human. Everybody knows that Ed Boon is the creator of Mortal Kombat, and he actually dropped by this year to check out some of the games and reconnected with some of the old things he created, such as The Grid, a 6-player deathmatch game that he did sort of to cleanse the palate between Mortal Kombat games in the 90s. It's a really great game. It's got a trackball and a trigger joystick, which a lot of games don't have, but that was to try to get the precision aiming of PC FPS games. Unfortunately, no home version ever existed. There were rumors of a Dreamcast version, but it never materialized. This is the only way you're going to play The Grid. That's enough of teaching you what's going on. I'm going to go back and play. If you want to go to California Extreme, the website is caextreme.org. You can find all the information there. And of course, you can find all my stuff over at oneofswords.com. Play on.